South Africa, 20 for 3 or something, were really struggling, and they managed to get a decent score, and then actually really embarrassed India with their bowling. They took out Axar Patel, who I thought had been really effective, and they played Washington Sundar instead. I mean, maybe that didn't work.
I'm a little surprised with that change, because not only Axar has done nothing wrong, but he's also the vice captain of the team. So optically also it doesn't look nice.
What was the key to them dominating Chakravarthy today, do you think?
Most of the games have been around that 160, 170 mark. We've rarely had those 200 games, so to say. What a tournament will Jacks have in both bat and ball.
Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes, and I'm delighted to say we're joined again by Deep Das Gupta, the former Indian batsman and wicket-keeper and current commentator. Deep, you've been watching the Super 8 matches today in India. I should think there's a lot of sighing going on at the moment after that rather surprising defeat of India against South Africa. We'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about England against Sri Lanka as well, which was also an interesting game which happened this morning. But India v South Africa, I mean, South Africa kind of got off the leash a bit, didn't they? Because, India bowled so well in that first early period, and you felt South Africa, 20 for 3 or something, were really struggling, and they managed to get a decent score, and then actually really embarrassed India with their bowling.
Absolutely. I thought there was some 30 odd for 3, and then the biggest, I think, issue that India faced in the first innings, the bowling innings, was generally that middle over. Varun Chakravarthy has been so good over the last 12, 18 months. He's the number one T20I bowler. But today was a very rare off day for Varun. I don't think he got his length right. But a lot of credit to David Miller and Dewald Brevis, that partnership between them. That was absolutely brilliant. Not only did they get this innings back on track and consolidate in terms of not losing wicket, but they scored very briskly as well during that period. So I thought both the innings were absolutely brilliant, superb. And that coincided with a rare off day for Varun Chakravarthy. And because that's where India has been so good in those middle overs, with Varun picking up wickets and kind of stifling the batters. But credit to South Africa. I think they played a very, very good game, very well planned tactically. I think they beat India tactically more than anything else, and obviously outskilled, but I think outthought India as well.
I noticed you mentioned there Devil Brevis, who of course was in your fantasy T20 World Cup team. And he's sort of taken a little bit of time to get going, but he played a really good innings today. And I'm very sorry, or pleased for you to say you're comfortably leading our three-way challenge for T20 fantasy team. You're on sort of about 1,100 points, and Simon Mann and I are bringing up the rear. So you're doing well at the moment, but still a little way to go. And you talk about the tactical approach of South Africa today. I mean, starting with opening the bowling with Aiden Markram, for instance. We talked about India's powerful left-handers and the way that they've dominated, especially Ishan Kishan, who's in your fantasy team, and the other left-handers that have been doing well for India in kind of isolation rather than as a team. And today, Markram opening the bowling, getting an early wicket, backed up by the quicker bowlers. So an off-spinner bowling at the left-handers and obviously causing one or two problems. I mean, I suppose, do you point or did you sort of highlight the fact that perhaps India have relied in each match so far on one batsman rather than batting as a team? And today was a bit like that as well.
So, to be fair, I don't think India still has played their best cricket so far in this tournament. I think the closest they came was the game against Pakistan. But again, you rightly mentioned the fact that even that game, it was Ishan Kishan's innings that stood out. That was the basic differentiator between India and Pakistan. Otherwise, I think I would say struggle, but India were in a spot of bother against US, against Netherlands as well, Namibia. So I don't think India still has played their best cricket so far. And in this particular game, tactically, what I meant was off spin. Yes, it was, I think, given looking at how Abhishek Sharma struggled, or India in general has struggled against off spin. For example, Gerard Erasmus of Namibia, he picked up a couple of wickets for 20 runs in his 4 overs. Then Usman Tariq, the mystery spinner slash off spinner of Pakistan. He picked up 3 wickets, went only for 22, 23 runs. Even Aryan Dutt of Netherlands, I think he went for just 17. So there has been a little bit of a trend in this tournament as far as Indian batting against off spin, as in right arm off spin is concerned. And I wasn't surprised to see Aiden Markram to start. But again, the wicket of Ishan was a big one. But how they even bowled to someone like Abhishek Sharma, they never gave any pace to him because with that bat swing, he likes pace coming onto the bat, so he can use that. But if before, before he got out to a slow delivery to a knuckleball. But both Engidi, Rabada, and then Marco Janssen did not give any pace to Abhishek to work with. So I think it was a very, very well planned and tactically a superb game for South Africa. I think what also has helped South Africa, they've had a really good last few months here in India. They beat India in test matches. They beat India in the ODIs. They came close. But that familiarity of having played in these conditions against this side in various formats, I think that does help. And it has helped South Africa to plan better against India in these conditions.
That's a very interesting point. And of course, they played a lot of their group games in Ahmedabad as well, didn't they? So it's
Yes.
almost like a home
Mm,
venue for them. Was it also the case today, do you think? Because that pitch is pretty good, isn't it? I mean, it's normally a good run making ground, but
mm,
today the pitch isn't quite so good. I mean, is it almost the case that the more you play on a place like Ahmedabad, where there
yeah.
aren't hundreds of pitches to choose from. You've only got a sort of smallish square. Is it going to get a bit trickier? And I mean, Pallakeli today was a bit the same
Yes.
as well.
Mm,
A pitch that in Sri Lanka that perhaps was playing well earlier, but because it's
yes.
getting more youth, perhaps it's bringing the slower balls and the
Mm.
miscues more into play.
Uh, I won't think so because I guess the squares, even though the squares are big, but because of broadcast issues, you only use 2 or 3 pitches. So you can't use the whole square. But I think what has also happened, and I was kind of surprised to look at the pitches. I was expecting high scoring pitches for this World Cup. But right through this World Cup, I believe because the pitches kind of are handed over to the ICC curator, right? So now ICC would prepare pitches. And I think there has been a conscious effort to have something in these pitches for the bowlers as well. And I think that's been one of the cases. But I thought today the pitch, it's even this pitch looked good for 180 odd game, which it was. So yeah, I mean, listen, I think the pitch was fine. It's just that Indian batters had an off day, while the South Africans, I think they outthought India and outplayed India completely.
Actually, you mentioned there that Abhishek Sharma, who of course did make his first runs of the tournament
Yes.
in his fourth innings, he finally got. In fact, you mentioned he liked pace. He likes pace because his best shot of this brief innings he played today was the uppercut off Bumrah.
Yes.
Sorry, off KG Rabada, which of course
Yeah.
was a quick ball, quick bouncer, and he
Yeah.
just let it come to him and sort of beautifully uppercut it
Mm.
over the keeper's head for six. Lovely shot. But then he was done by the slower ball, and I think the combination there of the knuckle ball from Janssen, and also what an amazing catch as well by
Oh,
Corbin
yes.
Bosch, who caught the ball running over his shoulder. And you can see if you watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see this actually. If you look at the analyst channel, he's running and he catches it over his shoulder while being landed on by Maharaj as well. So not only
Yes.
did he take the catch over his shoulder, but dealt with another player almost sort of collapsing on top of him. I mean, amazing piece of cricket. A little bit
Yeah.
like that time in the World Cup final when Travis Head took a diving catch to get rid
Yes.
of Rohit Sharma, I think, wasn't
Rohit
it?
Sharma.
And
Yes.
it sort of reduces the huge 120,000 crowd in Ahmedabad to total silence and kind of almost aghastness.
Yeah. And famous words from Pat Cummins after that, when he said, we wanted to silence the crowd or something like that. I think on something on those lines he mentioned, which to be fair, they did actually on that day.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, it preluded a series of very good pieces of fielding by South Africa today. I mean, you said
Yes.
that the Indian batters failed or had a bad day, but 3 catches in an over by Tristan Stubbs on the boundary, kind of
Mm,
going over the line and throwing the ball back in,
mm,
taking those catches under pressure in
mm.
a foreign venue.
Yeah.
With the ball being hit at
That
warp 9. I
Simon,
mean,
that's the
really
that's the
impressive.
other thing. I wonder if Indian conditions are foreign anymore for especially
Mm.
South African cricketers, because I believe all of them, apart from I guess Keshav Maharaj, have played quite a few years of IPL in these conditions. So that's the other thing. I don't think a team like South Africa, these conditions are too alien, even for Australia for that matter. And yeah, and even English players, some of them, in fact, quite a few of them have played IPL for a few years. And I think it just, for example, David Miller, Ahmedabad was his IPL home ground for, I guess, 3 years or something, played for GT. So I guess these conditions now in this day and age aren't too alien for these players.
How interesting. I mean, that's a very good point, and it shows a progression because initially you always felt with the IPL that it gave India a massive advantage on the world stage because it was bringing all great players from around the world together in a concentrated
Yes.
environment for a month and a half, and it was really ramping up the standards of everything, batting, bowling, fielding, and
Mm,
India were obviously benefiting, and more players were coming in from the the sort of the outlying posts of India to come and want to play,
yeah.
and so it opened up the market to lots more players. So India had that initial advantage, but you're saying now that in a way India is sort of leveling it up because other players from around the world are playing so much in the IPL. It's a little bit like, funnily enough, going back to the 1980s, my era, when the West
Mm,
Indians played a lot of county cricket, and that kind of almost like a finishing school for them, and they
mm,
then dominated the world because they were able to play in England and play concentrated cricket and understand other conditions, and it really rounded them off as players. I mean, do you think India are still favourites?
I still think India are favorites. No, now I don't know. It was somewhere I mentioned my top four teams. This is start of the tournament. I said India, South Africa from this side, and I said England and Pakistan from the other, and then I said India and South Africa will play the finals, because I believe in these conditions and in general, I think India and South Africa are the two strongest side at this point in time in this format. And I'm not surprised that South Africa has beaten India, but obviously the margin, yes. But I have always thought that South Africa and India are the two strongest teams in this competition.
The 78-run victory actually
Yeah,
in the
that's
end for
huge.
South Africa today. I mean, that is a big win.
Mm,
Let's pick on a few moments. I suppose, as we talked about at the beginning, the rebuilding that South Africa were able to do with David Miller and Brevis as well to
mm.
sort of get back on track. After that was after a brilliant opening spell by Bumrah. And the commentators keep using the word genius about Bumrah, and I can't think of a better word.
Exactly. In a 180 run game, he went for I think 14 or 15 in his 4 overs and 3 wickets as well. And
And he's
this is
bowling
bowling.
2 at the front, up front, and 2 at the death. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly so. So the toughest overs that you can think of in this format, and just absolutely brilliant. And listen, by now I think, anyways, my vocabulary is very limited. I guess even if Shakespeare comes up, he would struggle to find adjectives for this man.
Yeah. Well, he's sort of mercurial as well because he turns it on when, India most need it, and he just deals with that sort of pressure. I mean,
Yeah,
knocking over Quinton de Kock, who's one of the kind of leading run scorers almost immediately, and then that wonderful slower ball. And actually, we can see again if you watch on video, you see the way he bowls that slow ball because he's got that fast sort of arm and a slightly
yeah,
wild, mad action. The slower ball comes looping out, and poor
yeah.
old Rickleton was just, half an hour early on the shot and just poked it. I mean, it's quite embarrassing when you get out like that, isn't it? But it's the brilliance of the bowler rather than the fallibility
True.
of the batsman.
But the other interesting thing that I found, I don't know whether you noticed or not, Lungi Ngidi bowling his slower deliveries very similar to Bumrah. The loopy off cutters to the left-handers, and again using a lot of the wrist. It's like Moeen Ali bowling. See, Moeen Ali, even though he's a finger spinner, he uses a lot of his wrist when he bowls, right? So
Yeah.
Bumrah similarly, and I saw Lungi Ngidi actually doing that in this game, and I thought, no wonder the batters couldn't figure out the slow deliveries from Lungi Ngidi.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. In fact, it reminded me a bit of Dwayne Bravo, who I
Yeah.
always felt was the best bowler of the slower
Hmm.
ball in the IPL
Yeah.
and even in ODIs, wasn't he? Because he
Hmm.
again does he does he's got quite a fast
Hmm.
arm, and he
Yeah.
then brings his wrist right round
Yeah.
and really imparts a lot of spin. I mean, I wish I was playing in this era because I had a
Yeah.
slower ball and I
Yeah.
bowled at this sort of off break the wickets, actually.
Yeah.
But the way they add that kind of rotation of the wrist makes the ball
Yeah.
dip as well. And of course, the
Hmm.
key, and this is something I worked on myself as well, was to follow through still, almost,
That's right.
very fully, and so that the
Yeah.
batsman can only see the fast arm and
So,
can't necessarily
yeah.
see the ball looping out.
So I believe the basic logic or the science behind this is what an off spinner would do in terms of number of revs on the ball. So the ball starts dipping as well. So it's not just slower, but it has a dip on it because of the amount of revs that you put on it. I guess that's what usually you expect the off spinners to do. I think the same logic applies for these off cutter slower deliveries when the seamers are bowling as well.
It does, and I think the key is, and I think they did a good bit of analysis on the program today, showing
Mm,
how he really follows through. Lungi Ngidi, when he lets go
mm,
of that slow ball, he's still got a full follow through of his arm, and his head is sort of going towards the batsman as well. And it's about the follow through. You've got to completely
mm.
complete your follow through,
True.
even though you're bowling a much slower ball. So South Africa recovered from that initial burst from Bumrah and some clever bowling. And what was the key to them dominating Chakravarthy today, do you think?
I thought Varun, generally what Varun does is he bowls this length, which is a little back of length, right? Where ideally you would want to play him off the back foot. But what happens is because he bowls so quickly and he's so flat in the air, he bowls around that 95 k's an hour. So it gets difficult to kind of pull and cut him because cutting is very, very difficult because he's very straight. He attacks the stumps. Pulling also becomes tough because it skids on. But today, I don't think he got the length right. If you look at his the sixes that he got hit, where everything was down the ground, but too full, were into the hitting zone of the batters. I think he just bowled a little too full today, and I think and a lot of credit to David Miller because he came into bat when 3 wickets had fallen, and then Varun comes on to bowl in the sixth over, the last over of the power play. And I think his second delivery he faced or something was a little full and he went over the top. So even though 3 wickets had fallen, usually it's say, Varun Chakravarthy, number one bowler, watch him or see him through kind of a thing. But then I think he started attacking from the first over itself, and that put Varun Chakravarthy on the back foot a little bit. And I don't think he recovered from it. Very first over, I think he went for 11. Then the second over, he came on to bowl, he went for 16 or something. So he never settled down after that initial burst from Miller against him.
Some changes from India today. So
Mm,
they took out Axar Patel, who I thought was had been really effective, and they played Washington Sundar instead. Uh, I mean maybe that didn't work. I mean, what do you think that was brought about by?
I'm a little surprised with that change because not only Aksar has done nothing wrong, but he's also the vice captain of the team. So optically also it doesn't look nice. I can understand he's having a poor run of games and things like that, but that's not the case. I mean, I thought he's done really well in the games leading up to the World Cup. But just, I don't know. I mean, maybe too many left-handers. Maybe that was the reason. But also, this team management has a lot of faith in Washington's abilities, which is absolutely fine. But then I don't know. I think Akshar um, still has. I mean, I would still pick Akshar to be fair, and also the vice captain of the team sitting out, not really hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, optically also not the best thing.
This is, I suppose, one of those times when, you look at the data and you look at the matchups and you think,
Mm,
well, a left arm
yeah,
spinner to Quinton de Kock to Rickleton,
yeah,
and a couple of other left-handers down the order in the South African team. Obviously, David Miller. You think well,
yeah,
maybe the left-arm spinner will be in their arc. We play the off
yeah.
spinner instead of perhaps just
But
picking your best
true.
bowler.
And also I think what also did not help the cause was that those three predominantly Quinton de Kock, Ryan Rickleton, they got out early, right? So before he could come in, and he does bring a lot of value because he does ball with a new ball. So he generally does start with a new ball as well. So my only thing is, my point is, if he's not bowling in the first six and you kind of holding Bumrah back so you can use Bumrah, maybe an over of Bumrah in the middle phase, then if you have to bowl him in the middle overs, you might as well play Akshar. Unless what you're planning to do is him bowling couple of overs in the first six, then it's a different question altogether. Not that Akshar doesn't bowl, but I do understand that bit then. But if he's not going to bowl with a new ball and he's not going to bowl in the first six, then you might as well play Akshar.
Just one other thought about this match. India's batting obviously faltered today, and they got lost lots of wickets. I mean, is there a case in later stages of these tournaments when, as you say, the
Mm,
pitches are prepared by the ICC rather than the home board, therefore there might be a little bit of help in there for the bowlers?
mm,
Is there a case for a batter like Shubman Gill or his type of player?
mm,
I mean,
mm.
Suryakumar Yadav is a type of player, I suppose, as well, who has a bit more touch and isn't going with
Yes.
the big shots so much. I mean, are they over dependent on the big hitters?
Mm. I think that's where Surya Kumar Yadav and Tilak become very important. So you take a punt with how Abhishek and Ishan play. And for example, it came off against Pakistan. Ishan played that blinder, 66 of 30 odd deliveries or something, and just took the game away from Pakistan. So you take a punt with those two guys, and then if you lose wicket, then you have Surya and Tilak to kind of sort things out and consolidate. And this has been the story right through this World Cup. If you look at okay, even I mean, I'm looking at teams with a lot of power hitters, right? So even let's say West Indies, if you look at their first six overs, they've been rather quiet. So they've taken their time. And England, right? Look at someone like Tom Banton, his innings, Will Jacks, his innings in this whole World Cup. They haven't been at a striker of 160, 170. They've always been one the 130, 135. Because as of now, most of the games have been around that 160, 170 mark. We've rarely had those 200 games, so to say. So I think there is a lot of value for batters like that who have the ability to play different conditions and different tempos. So I think, and also moving forward, uh, with especially in Sri Lankan conditions, you would definitely need batters like that who can not necessarily try and hit every ball out of the park.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, certainly India will be the tail between their legs today after that performance. Where do they play next?
They play in Chennai. That's another, I mean, that's a good batting surface. That's played really well so far this World Cup. They're playing Zimbabwe on the 26th.
Right. Yeah. So that's a sort of a slightly easier, well, possibly a slightly easier, although Zimbabwe. Yeah. Well, interesting to see what happens. Okay. Well, listen, we'll just take a quick break and then we'll talk about England. So England set off today, the first match of the Super Eights, because yesterday's game between New Zealand and Pakistan was washed out. So England were playing the first match. They were put in by Sri Lanka today in Pallekele, and it was a day game. So I guess the Sri Lankans felt that the pitch would play nicely and be a nice place to
Mhm.
chase. Didn't work out like that. England struggled though, didn't they? And I'm just going to talk about Josh Buttler for a bit because
Yes.
he's had scores of 25, 21 and a couple of single figure scores. coming into this game. And I did say on one of our earlier shows, I felt a bit worried about him because he wasn't looking as positive and as kind of committed to the shot and as certain in his general kind of demeanour as he has usually in one-day cricket. And today, if we look again, if you look on video, if you look again at his dismissals in earlier games, there's sort of just a slight lack of commitment in the shots that got him out against Italy and against Nepal, slightly miscuing the ball and the ball lobbing into the outfield in each case. And you can just see the lack of real certainty and sort of forthrightness in those shots. And today, a bit the same. He looked really kind of apprehensive almost against the left arm seamer of Sri Lanka and just couldn't get going at all.
And this is my concern with him is, see, in this format, you would get, scores like that from time to time. But then it's not just him getting low scores, but how he's looked at the crease. I mean, things that you mentioned, apprehensive, tentative, which is not him. I'm not too sure why that is happening. Obviously, that footwork. I mean, generally he never had a lot of footwork, but if you've noticed in the last 4 odd games, he's just playing from the crease, whether it's spin or fast bowling. The feet is not going anywhere at all. So I also it's not just about low scores. It's just how he's looked at the crease, which is a little more concerning.
Yeah, I mean, at least Phil Salt sort of compensated for him today to some extent. I mean, England's opening pairs, generally, opening partnerships have been poor, but Salt managed to hang in there and play a reasonable innings. That pitch didn't look as easy as the Pallachelli pitches.
Rather, I'd put it the other way around. It looked all right. And if you look at the dismissals, both the sides, yes, there was spin. It was gripping a little bit. And I'm glad Athers asked that question post game to both the captains, as in, it didn't look like a 140 and a 99 or 98 kind of a pitch. It looked better than that. I'm not saying it's a 180 pitch, but it looked like more like a 160 kind of a pitch. So I did cover this game as well, and I was commentating on it, and I like, it looked 146 looked below par. I was like, yeah, it should be all right, and Sri Lanka should chase this down, and it whatever. And even second innings, if you look at the dismissals, it's not that the ball turned a lot. It was the angle, and I thought, I mean, what a tournament will Jacks have in both bat and ball. I mean, but again, none of those wickets were because the ball stopped on the batter or it turned a lot or something. It was just, I don't know. I don't know what's the reason behind it, but to me, it definitely looked a lot better than what the scorecard suggests.
Both teams batted badly, basically, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I heard Harry Brooks' comments before the game saying we mustn't get out playing timid, tentative shots. I want us to be brave. And ironically, Buttler and he himself, Harry Brook, got out playing rather tentative shots. I mean, Harry Brook was LBW, sort of poking at one rather hesitantly, which slid on and hit him on the pad. And Buttler, in the end, going with he went with a reverse sweep, which, I mean, is his shot, but it didn't look convincing somehow. And actually, the bowler, Wellalagi, held it back a bit, and he was through the shot too early and didn't even bother to review it, did he? I mean, he's LBW and actually just walked off. So, I mean, it was a game littered with errors from both sides on the batting side, the batting front.
Yeah. And also Villalagi, I mean, the 3 wickets, if you look at the deliveries, they were all bowled under 80 k's an hour. I think the Harry Brook delivery was around 70, 71, was as slow as that. The other 2 were around that 76, 77 mark. Yeah, so like you rightly said, even that Harry Brook dismissal, I wanted to defend, but all those wickets, you could see the bat way ahead of the body. So they were kind of beaten in the air, so to say.
Is it, I mean, I'm just sort of wildly riffing here, really, but I mean, is it a problem, do you think, that you go through a tournament as a batter, and it's not like Test cricket or even 50-over cricket where you might play a long innings and get into the rhythm of batting.
Yeah.
In T20, there's no time to sort of stay in and feel your way. You've got to get on with it, and that sort of getting everything in sync as a
Mm,
batter, which is so important to them, isn't it? I mean, you
it
can
is.
do
Yeah.
a fair amount of practice in the nets, obviously,
Yes.
but it's not the same as being in a match on a match pitch and
Mm,
against opposition bowlers who are changing their pace a lot. Is it are batsmen struggling for rhythm as the tournament progresses, or
yes.
something bad?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one is that for rhythm, and secondly, the shot selection, and especially this game, if we talk about both the sides, I think some of the shot selection, for example, Jacob Bethel against the off spin of Theeksana, it was within the power play overs. I think it was the fifth or the sixth over of the innings. He went to hit over mid on. Let's just forget whether it turned or not. You know there is grip on this surface. It is coming slow and it is gonna turn, which it didn't though. But then still then, I mean those are bad shot selection given the conditions, right? On these surfaces you will try and hit with the turn rather than against it. Things like that, very, very small things like that. I mean, I think one is rhythm. Secondly, just getting the shot selection right, because these aren't those kind of pitches where you just hit through the line. You pick the line, you pick the length, and just hit through them. There is something in it for the bowlers. So I guess you got to respect these conditions a little bit and plan accordingly, and the shots that you're going to play on these surfaces. Because again, most of the batters, when you prepare for a T20 tournament, a big part of your preparation is power hitting, hitting sixes. And if you look at in this tournament, it's been more about boundary hitting rather than six hitting. It's about being smart, picking up the gaps and playing the right shots and all of that. So I don't know whether the players were expecting something else while they were preparing for the tournament, and now that they're playing the tournament, they've got something else to deal with. And it seems as of now, not too many of the batters have dealt with it all right.
One other point I suppose to make related to that is the brilliance of some of the catching. I mean, today we've
Oh
seen
yeah.
several catches. I mean, Will Jacks took one over the rope and flicked it back to Tom Banton. That was one brilliant
Mm,
catch. There were two or three other excellent catches in that England
mm,
defence of a low score, 146, some good sharp catching. They got their field settings right as well, which of course is
mm,
so important. I mean, for instance, Patan Nasanka, the
mm,
demolisher of Australia, only a few days ago, picked
yeah,
up a nice ball from Archer, but straight to the tallest, one of the tallest players England have,
yeah,
Jamie Overton on the boundary, who sort of took it right on the edge, and then Archer got one to the left-hander who had a forcing
mm,
shot, and he was caught by Overton again in a sort of deep slip position. So it's kind of getting the fielders in the right places. And then obviously the catch is taken. Tristan
mm,
Stubbs, three catches on the boundary and one over today. Several of them or a couple of them quite tricky. That diving catch by Corbin Bosch with Maharaj landing on him. I mean, we've seen some
yeah,
tremendous agility from the fielders, haven't we, as well?
yeah. True, absolutely. I mean, so true. And also I thought the captaincy, both in these games,
Mm.
Harry Brook was,
Yeah.
I thought, very good as well. So was Aiden Markram. I think tactically also both the captains got it spot on.
Yeah. So, how are India feeling, do you think, after this? What's the kind of mood in
Yeah.
the country? I mean, you got through the early rounds pretty well,
Mm,
unscathed, more or less. But
yeah.
is there? I mean, I was looking at the faces in the crowd today
Mm.
as that match unfolded, and there was a bit of dismay going on.
Yeah, I guess it's not about losing, but again, the margin, and there wasn't a fight. I think in the end, lost by 70 odd runs, but India just got 111. So I think the margin also was, see, the issue is in this group, India's group, I don't think net run rate might be a huge factor. But obviously, in the other group, the England group, it would be looking at the weather conditions and the forecast for the next week or something. But then it is it is a reality check for India, because India's had a really good run last couple of years, right? In bilaterals and all of that, whether it's New Zealand, South Africa, whoever they played, to be fair. But then I think maybe not necessarily a very bad thing to get a reality check this early into the tournament, so to say, in the Super Eights with two more games to go. Yeah, and yeah, something on those lines. I mean, as far as general fans are concerned, they would be extremely disheartened, because you know how fans are in this part of the world. We're very emotional. Um, the highs are very high, the lows can be very low as well. So yeah, so I mean, you do feel for the fans, and it's not going to be easy next couple of days till I guess the next game against Zimbabwe. There would be few long faces around.
What are your co-pundits saying about India?
Well, obviously, there are a few chinks in their armor. I mean, in terms of the off spin thing that I mentioned before, again today, Aiden Markram. And then bowling wise, this could, I mean, listen, rarely does Varun Chakravarthy goes for as many as he went in this game. So yeah, you can also, there are a few things which you can say, was a little bit of an aberration. But yeah, you got to be mindful. Like I said, I mean, most of us, we think this is not a bad thing to happen this early, and then and learn from it. But see, the issue is India again hasn't played their best cricket, like I said before. And there has been issues like Tilak. He's been getting those 25s and 30s, but you can see there's a lack of flow in the batting. Right? So all these 30s and all has come at a strike rate of 120, 125. And not just that, but also the flow, the way that he's batting. So you have one opener who hasn't scored in the first three and finally gets some runs. Ishan Kishan, unlucky today, got out early. That can happen. Tilak hasn't looked in flow. So there are a few things, and Hardik Pandya, a couple of shots that he's played so far, the one against Pakistan as well. So yeah, I mean, I think a few things to think about, ponder over, but not get concerned. I don't think we should get concerned in terms of the Indian side.
Do you ever see Gautam Gambhir, the coach, smile? He always
You know,
looks he always looks incredibly depressed.
So you know what Gambhir means in Hindi. Gambhir means quite serious, right? The his surname
Right.
itself means serious. But you know what? He has a wicked sense of humor as well, which comes out every now and then, but not in public. Yeah, but listen, he's under pressure as well. His tenure so far hasn't been all rosy. India's lost couple of test series at home. Um, this is the format where India has kind of dominated in the last year. So yeah, would be under pressure to be fair. So and at times that does show on his face as well.
Your view about just briefly about the other teams,
Hmm.
the associate nations. We talked
Yeah.
about this with Peter De La Penna on our last show.
Hmm.
Have done perhaps better than people expected, but
Hmm.
maybe you think they need more encouragement.
100%. So what I personally think, Simon, is uh, this can't be a story from World Cup to World Cup. We can't be like every World Cup talk about how much they've come about and how developed they are or they look now, and then forget about them from between this period from World Cup to World Cup over the 2 years. I think they do need a little more hand holding, and that's where I think the top cricketing nations should do more, contribute more, maybe find their own areas. Like, England does that for the European countries, India does it for the Asian countries, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka does it for this area. Australia, New Zealand does it for the Oceania, Asia Pacific, or whatever, and so on and so forth. I mean, and kind of, for example, Scotland and Ireland can come over and play the 50 over tournament or the Vitality, the T20 tournament. They can send a team or maybe a couple of teams, whatever is possible practically. And things like that. I mean, same with, let's say, Nepal can come over and play the domestic 50 over tournament in India, and keep sending teams. Maybe the Lions team can go and play in Scotland and things like that, or Italy, whatever. I mean, the top cricket playing nations should kind of help, and these teams, because they've been very impressive. But again, every World Cup we say the same thing, and then we forget for the next couple of years. I think we need to focus more on them, not just the World Cup period, but the period between the World Cup.
I suppose at least now, well, it's a good thing and a bad thing. There is a T20 World Cup every 2 years, whereas it used
Yeah,
to be every 4 years.
yeah.
I probably think that's overkill, but nevertheless, I suppose those
Hmm.
countries, now that they've expanded it to 20 teams, those countries
And
that you're talking about have a
yeah,
bit more chance to play in a world tournament. But
true.
no, I totally buy your argument
And
there.
one more thing, Simon. Sorry. One more thing. I guess if you look at the teams in the associate nations who've done better than expected, and also if we take the Afghanistan model, how well they have done, a lot of credit goes to franchise cricket. I'm glad that there is a plan of the European League which is happening. That should help. And again, the Nepal Premier League. I mean, there are a lot of overseas players which go and play there, and you see that the change or the improvement in cricket in Nepal as well, and their players. So I think if we take the Afghanistan model, Afghanistan doesn't play a lot of international cricket, but almost all of them they do play a lot of franchise cricket. And look at how they've kind of developed in the last few years. I think maybe can follow that model and maybe encourage, for example, let's say in 100 you can add overseas players the quota by one, and that can be an associate nation player, so you can have another overseas nation player in that 11.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly opens the eyeballs to the talent
Mhm.
there is around the place, doesn't it? I agree. I
Yeah,
like the reference to the Nepal Premier League actually, which for a long time was called the EPL. It's the other
the,
EPL,
yeah,
The
this Premier
Everest
League.
Premier League. I love the
Yeah,
name. Anyway,
right.
listen, Deep,
Yeah,
thanks for your time today, and
pleasure.
go to bed because there's another game tomorrow.
That's
It's
right.
they come thick and fast. England now play next on Tuesday against Pakistan in
Mhm,
Pallekele, the same venue as they played today.
mhm,
And as you say, India are playing later in the week. So we'll see how it all emerges. By the way, England now, if they win one of their next two games,
mhm.
either against Pakistan or New Zealand, then they should be through to the semi-finals because the
Yeah,
first game in their group was washed out. So New Zealand and Pakistan only got 1 point. So England only need 4 points to be
true.
sure of qualifying for the semi-finals. So that's it for today. We'll be back later in the week to review the next developments in this T20 World Cup. Deep, thanks for your time and
Pleasure.
sleep well, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.